Hello there. I'm the Dream Finder, and my little purple friend here is a figment of my imagination. So we've traveled all over the world, collecting the stuff dreams are made of, right here in the Dreamport.
Can we see them, Dream Finder?
Well, I don't know, Figment.
Everything I collect can inspire amazing and marvelous new ideas. Look, Figment, some new friends have joined us.
Hello, on your tour, you'll see how the 5 human senses can help capture your imagination.
Let's see now. Where did I put those dreams?
See? I told you everything would be fine.
Figment? Look.
With FIGMGMT, you can see things differently.
When are we bringing Dreamfinder back?
Well, as you can see, there's not much going on upstairs, imagination-wise.
Are you the future?
Michael, please, please, please.
No, I don't want you out of my sight.
Outside, okay.
Experiment concluded. Reality restored.
One little spark of inspiration is at the heart of all creation. Right at the start of everything that's new. One little spark lights up for you.
Bye-bye. Say goodbye, Figment.
Goodbye, Figment.
When you think of the pavilions of Future World, imagination may seem like an odd fit between the technology and science-based themes found elsewhere. But without imagination, you could say that none of those themes would even exist. Journey into Imagination is one of the most loved and also one of the most hated rides in Epcot. On our previous stop on the expedition, we saw that the original Journey into Imagination ride didn't open until March 1983, months after Epcot and the Magic Eye Theatre opened. Before that though, in 1979, Disney was planning a new area for Disneyland called Discovery Bay. One attraction within would be a carousel theatre show featuring a Professor Marvel and his dragon. The area also featured the same building design as was planned for the not-built Land and Mineral Pavilion in Epcot. Discovery Bay was cancelled though and never completed, but a few of those ideas would eventually be used to inspire the Imagination Pavilion. Professor Marvel and his dragon will be altered to fit the imagination theme. Professor Marvel will become Dreamfinder and he would keep his dragon, now a figment of the imagination. Figment will begin as a green dragon, but will be changed later to the purple we know today. The rumour is that this was because green was the colour of Kodak's rival, Fujifilm. We will be joining Dreamfinder and Figment to tour the universe collecting sparks of imagination, before seeing what these sparks could create. With Magic Journey showing next door and ImageWorks opened upstairs, the load station to the attraction sat empty after technical delays during the ride's construction delayed opening. The lobby loading area itself featured artwork from the ride within, with a huge staircase in the centre taking guests up to ImageWorks. When the attraction did open on March 3rd, 1983, it offered a visually stunning ride created by Disney Imagineer Tony Baxter, known also for Big Thunder Mountain and Splash Mountain, among many others. When you think of the music for the ride, it's impossible not to think of One Little Spark.
One little spark of inspiration is at the heart of all creation.
Created by the Sherman Brothers, this though wasn't the first proposed song for the ride, and Disney rejected the original song created by Bob Malines in favour of One Little Spark, which was integral throughout the ride.
That can turn your dreams into reality.
The ride itself was a 13-minute modified Omni-Mover attraction. 20 trains of 4 would be able to speed up or slow down independently of each other, but were constantly moving to create a continuous train during loading. The ride would begin with a projection of the Dream Ship collecting its first sparks of imagination before you saw the ship in person. The Dreamfinder would introduce himself. This technically impressive scene worked on a turntable system, lasting just over 3 minutes, and would travel around the Flight to Imagination scene with the Dreamfinder, creating his figment of imagination while discussing what the imagination can create. The scene featured multiple special effects. The turntable system revolved around the room at the same speed as the ride vehicles were moving, giving the impression of being in a static room. The exact same effect is used today on Harry Potter Forbidden Journey, but instead of a physical set, you rotate inside a screen. You are unable to see the other vehicles who are experiencing the same scene at the same time. When exiting the turntable scene, it really felt like you were starting to move again, but in fact you were still moving along at the same speed. Next, you will be entering the Dreamport. After you travelled into scenes representing art, which features a large painting Dreamfinder is creating, a carousel, and a pot of rainbows held by Figment, literature, who had Dreamfinder playing an organ with words coming out while Figment tried to keep a book of monsters closed, performing arts, where Figment was trying on different costumes while Dreamfinder conducted a light show, and the science room. Dreamfinder tells Figment that the imagination is key to unlocking the hidden wonders of the world as the show enters the final scene.
We all have sparks. Imagination. That's all our minds.
Finally, you're invited to enjoy ImageWorks upstairs. The ride, and especially Dreamfinder and Figment, were huge hits. Unlike today, Epcot did not feature characters within the park and its attractions, so they became the unofficial characters of Epcot, and even to this day are used on merchandise within the park, and Figment is often used with Epcot's festivals.
Well, I'm kind of the host of the Journey into Imagination show out here,
which in part created some of the hate towards its replacement ride, Journey into Your Imagination. The Pavilion was the last of Future World to be refurbished, closing on October 10th, 1998, and reopened just a year later on October 1st, 1999, in time for the busy Millennium season. The Pavilion would once again become one coherent theme, with the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience show next door, which had been running since 1994. Eric Idle would reprise his role as Dr. Nigel Channing to act as the host of the ride. Figment and Dreamfinder were removed, with only a few cameos from Figment throughout. The Pavilion would now be known as the Imagination Institute. As well as this, the ride would be considerably shorter, 35% shorter in fact, with a large section of track removed, including the impressive turntable system. Half of the turntable track was removed, the remaining was the new loading area for the ride. Next time you're about to board Journey into Imagination, remember to depress yourself by thinking you are stood on the old location of the Dreamfinder ship. The ride, which was previously 13 minutes, would now only last 5. The queue and ImageWorks would take up the space previously used as the final, unload and load area of the ride, and the upstairs section of the Pavilion would be closed completely. The old, beautiful mural-themed loading area would become the gift store and entrance. The new ride will be themed as taking a tour of the Imagination Institute, while being test subjects for a new invention, the Imagination Scanner. The ride began by being scanned and being told the riders have no imagination.
Well, as you can see, there's not much going on upstairs, imagination-wise.
Rude. Then, Dr. Channing takes us through numerous labs, sound, illusion, color, gravity, and connections before being scanned again to find their minds were now magically filled with imagination before the machine exploded for the final. As you can see, the difference between the quality of the sets and attraction was huge. This new version had no imagination itself. Not only was it shorter, didn't feature love characters of the original, the music was gone, and on top of that, it looked cheap. Part of the reason for the update in the first place was reportedly that Disney and Kodak had an agreement that the attraction would be updated every 15 years. Disney were a different company at the time, trying to save money from every angle and struggling from the financial failures in Disneyland Paris, with cancelled projects left, right and centre. Disney though were concerned with a non-existent line for the old attraction, the increasingly popular Honey, I Shrunk the Audience next door, as well as the high maintenance costs for the turntable section of the ride. Kodak, who were supposed to provide the financial part of the refresh, were just beginning their financial difficulties due to the rise of digital imagery and their failure to adapt to it. They couldn't exactly provide a large budget for a new ride when they were having to let staff go. Yet Disney still demanded they paid for the contracted refresh. They came to an agreement so that they would both be responsible for the cost. A new ImageWorks would be built to showcase Kodak's products, while Disney would choose the new IP, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, to be attached to the new ride. I find it kinda odd that while the ride budget was slashed, it surely couldn't have been cheap to hire Eric Idle again to be the host. Guests did not like this new version at all, and it only existed for 2 years. It closed again on October 8th, 2001 to help improve its popularity somewhat. The ride kept its tie-in to the Imagination Pavilion, but the ride would be now known as Journey into Imagination with Figment. Disney had listened to the complaints, wow, somewhat, and loaded the ride with as many figments as they could in every scene.
This is one of my discoveries, the figment of imagination.
Yeah, I know all about the senses.
The script was redone again, and Figment played a major role this time. Dreamfinder, though, for reasons unknown, did not return. Figment, now by himself, had a completely different personality. He was much more annoying and tried to be mischievous, but basically was a jerk.
See with your eyes, but imagine what you could see if you used your imagination.
Trying to take over the open house of Dr. Channing's of the Imagination Institute.
Great idea. We'll go to my open house instead. It's much more fun.
If you only saw Figment in this version of the ride, I find it hard to believe you would understand the love this character receives. Also returning was a rewritten original One Little Spark song.
Imagine different things.
The ride opened in June 2002 and still stands there today over 15 years later. More of an overlay of the previous version than a new ride, it consists of starting out with screens introducing the ride again by Eric Idle, this time being interrupted by Figment. The first room, the Sound Lab, remains the same, but has some extra lighting and includes Figment. The second room, the Sight Lab, features everyone's most exciting imagination aspect, an eye chart. Next up, the Smell Lab features a slot machine with a skunk scent, another not very well received scene.
What is going on? You're turning this entire open house upside down.
Dr. Channing decides to end his open house early and skips the rest of the tour. The old gravity room is featured and is changed to Figment's open house. The final scene was changed to feature an actual set.
You can plainly see, imagination works the best when it's set free.
You said it, Doc. Imagination is a blast.
Instead of just projections, with as many figments as you can imagine. While somewhat better than the previous version, it still was a huge downgrade from the original, and is to this day still constantly rated as one of the worst rides at Disney World. Somewhat insultingly, the only reference to Dreamfinder is a door with the name Dean Finder on it. The ride is a far cry from the whimsical creative journey that used to exist here. Only the very end could have somewhat of a reminder of the fun that existed in the old ride, but it doesn't match it. Kodak pulled out a sponsor in the Pavilion in 2010 after nearly 28 years. Just another failure of the Epcot sponsorship design, which started out so promising, but has seen nearly every pavilion become a poor version of what they used to offer due to the sponsor system. It wasn't just Figment or Dreamfinder that fans missed, it was the spirit of excitement, fun, wonder, and joy that the ride created. Sadly, it no longer exists. What does the future hold for Journey into Imagination? Well, surely with the refresh of Future World announced, this attraction can't hold on for too many more years. It is already a disjointed pavilion and has been constantly rumoured to be turned into an inside-out attraction. That seems to have been put on hold, so who knows if that will actually happen. Figment can actually be seen on a portrait inside Riley's imagination in the movie. At least this idea would stick to the idea of imagination and tie into the Pixar Short Film Festival next door if that is to stay around. But with the future of Epcot moving away from the original concept of the park, what this area could be is anyone's guess. With the amount of merchandise sold though, with Figment featuring, I can't see him going away altogether. All the pavilion really needs is one little spark. Next time, we have our final stop on the expedition at the Imagination Pavilion, looking at ImageWorks, which sat abandoned for a good portion of its history. Thank you so much for joining us on Expedition Epcot, and if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Imagination is something that belongs to all of us.
You mean everyone can think up new things?
That's right, Figment. And every sparkling idea can lead to even more.